Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Iran hardliners taking over. A Fauci Confederate pleads guilty. The national debt skyrockets, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. President Donald Trump stated Tuesday that the United States has no talks underway or scheduled with Iran. He maintained that the Strait of Hormuz is open, operating, and cleared of water mines, while Iran's chief negotiator declared the waterway will remain closed until Washington lifts the blockade of Iranian ports, removes oil sanctions, releases frozen Iranian assets, and ends military threats. Meanwhile, Iran is rebuilding the upper ranks of its military and security establishment after months of wartime losses by turning largely to figures whose careers in some cases stretch back to the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the Iran-Iraq War, and previous domestic crackdowns. The reshuffle puts veteran hardliners atop institutions that shape Iran's military operations, national security policy, and internal security at a time of renewed confrontation with the United States. The Department of Justice unsealed a 14-count indictment Tuesday charging 17 Iranian cybercriminals with a massive hacking campaign on behalf of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, allegedly breaching 144 American universities and stealing 31 terabytes of research and intellectual property. The State Department is offering up to $10 million for information on 5 of the defendants. The Department of Justice is planning to deploy 1,000 poll monitors during the midterm elections to ensure that several laws are upheld throughout the voting process. DOJ has already deployed more than 75 monitors across 5 states and more than 200 polling locations this primary season, according to a release. Poll monitors will observe whether states are upholding the Voting Rights Act, National Voter Registration Act, Help America Vote Act, Uniformed and Overseas Citizen Absentee Voting Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Civil Rights Act through its procedures. Under former President Biden, the DOJ launched similar efforts to deploy poll monitors in 22 states during the 2022 midterm election season and 27 states during the 2024 presidential election. Dr. David Morens, former senior advisor at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and once an associate to Dr. Anthony Fauci, pleaded guilty Thursday to a conspiracy to defraud the U.S. in relation to efforts to evade Freedom of Information Act requests. The Department of Justice announced the guilty plea Tuesday. In April, the DOJ brought charges against Morens, age 78, alleging conspiracy against the U.S., and he was indicted. The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic had uncovered evidence in 2024 that Morens had used his personal email outside the scope of FOIA requests to discuss National Institutes of Health grants with the infectious disease group EcoHealth Alliance. Hours before 50% levies on $20 billion worth of Canadian imports were scheduled to kick in last night at 12:01 a.m., President Trump said on Truth Social he was pausing them. The president said he would delay the tariffs for 3 days based on the fact that Canada and the USA, subject to the finalization of documents, have a deal. The announcement followed trade talks between Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday. Trump threatened the tariffs last month, in response to what his administration asserted was discriminatory treatment of U.S. goods in the auto, alcohol, and dairy industries. The U.S. national debt is approaching $40 trillion and could exceed that level this week. Treasury data placed the debt at approximately $39.93 trillion on August 17th. 6 months ago, the Congressional Budget Office projected total borrowing would reach about $39.4 trillion during the current fiscal year. Recent Treasury auctions have required higher yields to attract investors. A 10-year note auction cleared at 4.683%, its highest auction year yield in 19 years, while a 30-year bond auction reached 5.216%, its highest in 25 years. Higher borrowing costs increase the federal government's refinancing and interest expense. The Treasury has increased its reliance on shorter-term debt as federal deficits remain elevated. The fiscal year deficit had reached approximately $1.8 trillion through July. Disney's ABC sued the Federal Communications Commission on Tuesday, asking a federal judge to block an early review of its 8 largest broadcast licenses that the network calls retaliation for coverage the government objects to. The suit compiles a timeline of President Trump's demands that ABC be punished, from late-night host Jimmy Kimmel's jokes to the network's refusal to air Trump's July address to the nation. ABC says the pressure is already changing what it airs. It live-streamed that July speech when it ordinarily would not have done so, and has stopped booking political candidates on The View. The FCC says the fight is about its year-long probe into whether Disney's DEI practices broke discrimination rules, not speech. The agency last revoked a license over programming in 1969. OpenAI announced ChatGPT for Teens on Tuesday, which will include parental controls, responsible homework reminders that detect AI-assisted cheating, and a ban on the chatbot expressing romantic feelings for its users. OpenAI is still facing a lawsuit from the family of a 16-year-old who killed himself following lengthy ChatGPT interactions. That's the Raw Naked Truth for August 19th, 2026. Remember to like and subscribe to the Raw Naked Truth wherever you listen to podcasts. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth Daily News Brief, as well as our sister podcast, Carnivore Radio, with news analysis and commentary, and the rest of the Xvadio Podcast Network at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.